Good morning, good day, namaskar. This is February 2nd, 2021, Tuesday, and Suraj Singh is speaking to you about professional issues, contracts, and title being Civil Field Engineering, Designs, Methods, Contracts, FIDIC, Construction Organization, Communication, Coordination, Project Quantity, Quality, and behind quality, where do we stand? This is talk in sequence. As usual, I talk about professional issues for all. It's not only for me, it's for all. Very important one, because if we if we do not worry about this, we lose a lot. Civil engineering, as I already defined and define every day, civil engineering is something universal. Everybody understands this, that without civil universality, I cannot call it simply engineering. It is universal technique, universal world where civil engineer plays a lot of role. It's moldable engineering, it's flexible engineering, because there is a lot of tolerance in this engineering as well as there is a lot of requirement in this engineering. People get advantage of tolerance, but they don't comply with requirements, they don't comply with what should be done, and they bend corners of everything. That's where worry lies in. It's easy to bend something, it's easy to cut corners of something, but it is very difficult to make corners alone. Cutting corners and reducing size is very easy, but to make it fully compliant to requirement is very difficult. Since civil engineer deals with all natural materials, generally all non-built materials, you can say, it is very important for people as well as for professional engineers or civil engineers to be awake, to be awakened, to be, you know, to stand themselves, to have standing in field in such a way that we comply with what should be done. We should not leave anything behind to take care for future. Whatever we do should be immediately implementable or comply worth. Decision making is very important part in civil engineering designs as well as construction, because sometimes, not only sometimes, actually generally, decisions are made without understanding reality. Decision for cost, decision for time, and decision for quality, and also decision for all remaining knowledge areas according to organizational management that are required. Risks are involved, factors are involved, health and safety are involved, quality planning is involved, and you can say nothing is left which remains uninvolved. It's easy to pass engineering because that is based on theory, and theory is fixed. Theory of structure it may be, designs of structures may be, construction techniques it may be, foundation engineering it may be, or you can say surveying or whatever else is there. Those can be passed. Passing is not an issue here. Everybody passes examination, that is only few years based study, but real examination starts when one enters field of engineering. It could be design field, it could be execution field, or whatever else. Field actually utilizes capability of that engineer who passes out with whatever grade, but test of knowledge attained during education is actually enriched during initial experience of that engineer. To be very frank, few years in commencement of career, say 5 years to 10 years, say 5 years at least if not 10 years, counts to very specific period, or you can say it is much more higher. You can say it's a kind of training tutorial of what you learned in your theory. This period, initial period, in fact is very essential for every civil engineer. I cannot guarantee that requirement for other branches of engineering like electrical, mechanical or many others. Because in those engineering generally materials are available in built-up form, machines are available, equipment are available. They have just to calculate some requirement like electrical loading or mechanical loads and then decide which machine or equipment are necessary for satisfying this requirement. That's altogether a different case. But when we come to original engineering, you can say civil engineering, I call it original engineering because it alone requires availability of natural materials in natural form, not in built-up form. Even if something is required to be built in, it is built in by engineers civil only. We may take rocks, dust, sand, cement or whatever else, chemicals. These materials are always available in natural form, and it is duty of civil engineer to select, to decide, to work out what ratios are required to be mixed up, what methods are necessary. Even for original material like soil, decisions are to be made based on certain procedures, which soil is best suited for fill or not suited for fill, which soil is best suited for foundation formation, and as such we have a long procedure for controls on testing to ensure that what we do that all meet requirement of project. I am not advocating something here because I am a civil engineer. You may not set your criteria that's why I am supporting civil engineering. Actually, civil engineering is nothing but engineering for public works, to be very frank. It is for public works development. Public works means public work, private work or whatever work where public access to. So I'm not saying government. When I say public, just mind it. I'm not saying government, I'm saying public works. A house is also a public work because it affects whole community. You are building your house, it doesn't mean you're private. Yes, ownership is private, but it affects whole public. In case there occurs accident, mishaps, it impacts workers, it impacts everyone. So it is public affair, you can say that way. Ownership is different. Public works are, you can say, related to activities of civil engineering and supported by all other engineering like mechanical, electrical, plumbing and many other branches like electronics, IT, etc. So we actually work in interdisciplinary state. It's nothing new now. All know in world that we work that way. Can you visualize, had there been no civil engineering, what would have been status of this world? Just think of that. It's a kind of imaginary question, but it leads to reality. Just imagine there is a complete desert and forest and there is nothing. You just find woods and trees and all that rough ground, or you can say useless crops there. Weeds, can you use that status of surface? You cannot use, except that you live there with tents or something and some ground preparation and sleep there. No protection from heat, from weather, hot or cold, from rain, from thunderstorm, and you can say you have to stay like a wood person. Wood person means forest person. That brings out a conception that it is body protection, it is mind protection, it is protection to our survival that civil branch imparts everybody all over world. Protection to ourselves, because if we are not strong in body, then we need some protection to our body. If we are not used to all weather conditions, we are not exposed to all weather conditions directly, then we have many requirements, and these requirements are fulfilled partly by civil world, civil engineering. Every engineering exists, and engineering means use of intellect and use of mind are not different. Intellect, intellect, but they are intellect. They are able to use their mind, though in wrong direction, but they have a capability to use their mental world. And when you are educated, this capacity of mind is supported by your education, and your direction is altogether changed. Once you understand civil engineering, you cannot call yourself civil engineer but a worker in that world, a student of that world. I consider myself even now a student of civil engineering, though I am 66 years old and more than 40 years my total experience. But I consider myself a student of engineering because I know very limited. I have learned very, very limited, which is not even 1 or 2% of this world. Because there are many sub branches in this field of civil engineering, many subjects, and one cannot work on all simultaneously, even though you stay for 100 years in civil engineering. Technologies keep on changing, thinking keep on changing. Thinking is very important in whatever engineering we are related to. Thinking I always equate it to engineering is intellect. Engineering intellect is thinking. Thinking is the unit of measurement of how powerful you are. There are some people who think a lot but later say, I am stressed. If by thinking one is stressed, I cannot call it thinking and call it liability of thinking. Don't be liable of thinking, enjoy thinking. Thinking means enjoying. And if you can't enjoy by thinking, then you cannot enjoy. First of all, free of cost. It doesn't lose anything from your knowledge, it gives you knowledge. Thinking means a kind of temporary concentration of your mind, and that is where your intellect is measured. How many hours can you concentrate, and how fast your brain can absorb that concentration? And that's of course something we can say a power of mind which engineering requires. If you have that power of mind that engineering requires or civil engineering requires, you can do a lot to serve this world. I am not talking of formal education, I am talking of real education, because formal education or informal education are only for purpose to get some designation of academics. That is one part of education. Real part comes when you use this education for purpose of production of what people seek of you. That production can be structures, and that production can be all other engineering products. Because I am from raw branch of engineering, civil, so I can say that my duty, my relation exclusively links to nature. Nature is my guardian, nature is my parent, because nature teaches me who am I, what I do, what can I do. Only engineering is civil that stays with natural materials, like as I said, structure is a natural material converted to artificial material. That is a structure. Was very much natural, and it has been produced by artificial arrangement into a kind of artificial stone that we name concrete, or it is converted to steel for purpose of structural steel. So altogether you can say only benefit is that structural steel is delivered in built form, so that we can select out of that. So it is little easier in structural engineering rather than in concrete engineering. When we talk of concrete engineering, we talk of projects. This means it may be exclusively structural project, it can be total architectural plus structural projects, or it can be total architectural plus structural plus services project. It depends upon requirement of who manage ownership, who is owner of that project, or who can say employer of that project. And what is project? That's also very important point, because first we should define what is project. What is project is very important point here, because project, if you define project in your way, what does project mean? You may say this project, that project, means you will name many projects, but you will not. If somebody will say this should be cost, somebody will say should be from beginning and end to end, somebody would say one thing or something like that. But other point is difference of project and operational world. When we say project, means to project something. If film is projected on some screen, you have a projection on your laptop, you have a projection on your desktop. These are all projections. And you can see your mind itself is a projector, because your mind gets some information and projects into your mental world which you can't see physically, but it works technically. So project means what? It's a kind of assignment, you can say, to itself. You have some money, you want to use that money. You have some idea, you want to use this money onto that idea, and for some set objective of promotion of something, and that promotion, you may call it promoter's project, you may call it whatever project. That project has certain set duration, certain set budget, and certain set criteria what to achieve. So there are some few considerations you can say project must have. What is set target of project? Means what do you want to get out of that project? How does it suit public, and how does it suit to your budget? Do you have that much budget? That's a point. So beginning, we say in beginning, commencement of that, it is, you can say, feasibility study of that project. Means is it feasible to have enough funds, because fund is first requirement. And then you see, is this area suitable for this project? Is there adequate demand for that project we are thinking of that produce something, or what's the land use, or what's the use of that project? All this factor counts in project. How long shall it work? How long shall it give returns? All those points are considered in total cycle of project. And then we say, yes, it is worth to some extent, may not be 100%, but 50 to 60%, or 50 to 70%, or 80%. Whatever we decide, we consider, then we have to say, okay, this project we understand, and we have to do something on that. And when they decide this decision making activity is done, in that case you can say project can run forever. It cannot be a whole life project. It should have certain set duration, set longevity, in which time this all investment we make on this investment doesn't mean financial investment. Investment is all efforts. Efforts are also investments. All this investment we are going to make to this project should lead to a time, to a point when we start operating that project into a unit which stops its title of project. At that time, when we say this project has been accomplished, it's like a delivery that it is over. It can now be used for whatever purpose, set objective that was intended for this project. And if it gives that one, at that time we can say project status is over, and you cannot say that this is a project. Project has gone because project accomplishment is done, deliveries are made, and those deliveries are made, and then whole project that we constructed is able to function, and we can say let us commission this project after testing, and we do that, and once it is commissioned regularly it works as service building, or it can be, you can say, operational building, or you can say whatever residential or commercial or institutional or whatever is a public infrastructure, whatever you can say, it means that set criteria is over and project has gone to past history, no more project now, and it continues in life. So it clearly states that those civil engineers who work on projects, they move from one project to other project during their life, and sometimes 5 years on this project or 2 years on this project or 1 year on that project. They keep on moving and moving and moving, and there are people who are involved in construction of structures as well as those who are involved in construction of non-structures or finishes items. Both have different caliber. So structural people are shifted little before project is over, and finishings move on, and finishing person has come. So you can say this all in all points that must be involved when we talk of construction, we talk of designs. This is very important part in our life. We have to be very clear about this. What we are talking of must be sensible. When we say project has been decided, it's moving on, so there are so many ways what project is all about. And do you want to make one project for this, or you want to make two projects for that? Depends on as far as project carrying out is concerned, project implementation is concerned. But in this world, we know whatever you want to construct, whatever plan you have, you cannot move it alone. That's also true. Yes, if it's very small, you can say, I can take care of this. But when it is big one, it's a question of many months or years, and a lot of money is involved. So in that case, you must require various experts for this project. Experts of all disciplines for that project, experts in designs and experts in execution, experts in planning, experts in safety and quality, and experts in procurement. Whatever you define, whatever you name, you find experts from that discipline or subdiscipline. Everybody can define something according to its own understanding, but what project decides, what project speaks about, that is more important. Just like you say, you know your car, manufacturer gave you that one, you understand its voice, its sound. Same way, civil engineer. When I am talking civil engineer, it doesn't mean civil means it includes all branches of civil engineering, structural, non-structural, architectural, and you can say roads, infrastructural, whatever is there in structural or in engineering, all are included herein. Do not take it otherwise. I am not going to differentiate between this is structural engineering, this is. For me, everybody is engineer, because honor goes to engineer. That's important. Engineer means a person who is genius. It's very simple to define like that. When we decide something, we say it's so big, or volumes of activities so large that we can't take care of it on our own. We need some help, some professional input from those who deal with that one. So it comes on that you have to get this work done by someone else, and that someone else then changes whole track of project, whole track of organization. We say, okay, we will give we will give this work, or at least some work, to someone who is not related to us, who is an independent expert, and who can help us in lieu of some consideration. That happens. So when we talk of this issue of, or you can say word of contracting, comes into our mind. Contracting. Contracting, which is very easy to understand. Everybody understands what is contract. I don't think people don't understand this except few low kids. Otherwise, all to understand what does contract mean and what. Though sometimes it's taken in negative style, but you take into negative style, what is style? Contract is required. And contract is not that this only civil engineering contract. Contracts are conducted every day without even noticing that you have contracted someone. Contract which is beautiful in definition, contract which tells you that you have to cooperate with each other. In fact, contract can be defined as mutual cooperation between two parties provided disputes are not allowed. And even if there are disputes, cooperation continues aside disputes. No, disputes move on for dispute purpose or for resolution purpose, but disputes cannot stop project movement. That is what beauty lies in this definition. You may require contract, and then you may require some contract conditions, and you may require that this contract condition that you are going to agree should be based on equity, not you are higher or I am lower. There doesn't mean any. That doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything. There doesn't mean anything when you are one end saying contract and others say you want to suppress some other party because you are powerful. Equity means both are equal. Party who contracts, both parties. One is that person who is called employer, and that person is responsible for totality of project. That is true. Totally of project, not partiality. That person that person has to take complete responsibility from each and every aspect of that construction, because employer or owner, when you are owner or employer, particularly I should say owner, you own all pluses and minuses that go on that project. It's called business, you may call it commerce, or you may call it promotion, or whatever you can call it. It's all same, but it doesn't change meaning of what is required. Contract, if you understand, something that we can say, contract is something that we can say it is a world, different world. It is altogether a different world. It happens that do not understand what is contract. It's not difficult to understand in article meaning of this term contract. When I say article meaning, this means you analyze that term, what is given, and you would understand what does it mean if that term is related to nature of activities. And sometimes that term is not artically defined. We just use that term for purpose of understanding what does it mean. What does it mean? That's true. Now, contract, when we say there's a track, you can say like that, concentration, or you can say on track by two parties. Concentrating movement of two parties on that track. You may say railway track, or you may say some other track. Just to understand easily, you can say railway track it is, or a road it is, on which both parties on contract have to move in unison with same speed and without fighting, without disputes, and that movement from one point of time to another point of time, which is combination role, cooperative role, and transaction role. Only difference is out of these two, one pays money to other one for doing some job, some work or some activity or total activities. That's only contract, nothing else. Means you have agreed something to do for someone and someone else agreed to pay you in lieu of what you do. And that is what contract means. It is so simple to understand. Of course, there are contract laws, there are so many limitations, but you can say, in clarity, we have to define that contract means a road on which, a railway track on which two unknown parties or known professional, physically, you can say personally unknown, they move on to first one to pay and second one to deliver for what is paid. And that's only contract. It's nothing very. You may do hundreds of contracts in a week. Maybe you are ignorant about that you have contracted something, and even if you buy something for some duration, or you can say this is also a contract. You travel, the ticket is contract. Like that, you unknowingly do contracts every day in life, and that's very important part to understand. It doesn't mean it should be in writing all the time. It's conventional practice, it's industry, or you can say where contract means it's not only for a few hours or one day, it's for years together. That imports precautionary measures to be adopted for purpose that contract moves continuously without interference of either party. And if there exists interference, it's a duty to resolve it through another world of arbitration and conciliation. So, my dear friends, I'm just defining because I am little confused sometimes whether or not you people only use contract or do understand them also. If you just use contract means you are not expert of contract. You are like you are using Windows or some other thing, and you're saying, okay, I did this. You just don't think on that issue and pass your what television channel says, or you can say what other people say. Yes, it's very important part that initial word of survey, initial word of survey of ground. Once you want to enter into agreement, you have to abide by agreement. There is no way out of that. Contract you have done, and there are behind contract many terms and conditions according to what is included on your contract. Everything requires definition, so you have to define everything. Every contract requires scope of work, so you have to define scope of work. Also, you have to define what is your historical power, like you can decide anything in beginning itself of project. Definition of contract I have given. It's only very simplest way to define, but it's not very simplest way to move on. Because even you think you are a very honest person, but when issue of payment comes, you are happy sometimes that your work is moving fast, but you are not happy because you are not getting payment. So when payment comes, this is something extraordinary for you. When we say something about contracts, we have to be very clear in that aspect that contract is never free, it is never, you can say, blank, it can never be blank, it is full of terms and conditions. And if there is no terms and conditions, I would say contract doesn't exist. But because contract exists, you pay for something and you are getting that service, you must have some record, and that record is what we are going to talk. Contract means a commitment. Commitment from both parties. It means obligation. It means promise. It means assurance. And it means guarantee. All that are required and that are expected that parties would respect their contract. Very simple. If you do not represent contract functions, contract conditions, that's contract in and out, you must know and you must decide about next generation phases. Somebody asks me contract, what is contract? You can tell him this is contract. But people consider it on the way, oh, this is higher person, this is lower person. And I do not recognize this fact. If you are higher because of capability of yours, not because of this material used on spin. We were talking about nominations of subcontractors, payment to nominated subcontractors, because contract can be further contracted, and that is called subcontractor with permission of employer. We're talking of contractor, subcontractor, documents, ownership, many issues which are all applicable on contracts. Because when we are going to say that this is engineering contract or engineering construction contract, it has a lot of you can say define of that project, permanent vision, permanent work. Actually, contract is meant for permanent work, and when it is meant for permanent work, automatically temporary works and preparatory work come into play. But when we say we are designers, now when you say we have to do all this, you have to be ready to go on procedures on contracts, because this contract is not for one or two items. This contract covers all items, structural and non-structural items. We are concentrating on project construction. All items are on record. It doesn't mean what record it is and what items these are. Only point is that justification is working for Hindu and English. For work and for no work, compensation or no compensation, makes or no makes, we have to see what contract analysis says, what project analysis says. Contract can be supported by changes or can be linked directly to death of or expected death of two relatives. When it happens during such world, definition should be modified. When we say that two parties agree for some project, well, I think it is a kind of determination, obligation, assignment, and that contractor gets more opportunity to work on contract, to deal with something rather than something. Before issuing payment certificate, which includes an amount payable to a nominated subcontractor, engineer may request contractor to supply reasonable evidence that nominated subcontractor has received previous payment certificate less applicable deductions for retention or otherwise unless there are reasons. Unless contractor submits its reasonable evidence to engineer or satisfied engineer in writing that contractor is reasonably entitled to withhold or refuse to pay these amounts and submits to engineer in writing that contractor is reasonably entitled to withhold or refuse to pay this amount, and engineer reasonable evidence submits to engineer reasonable evidence that nominated subcontractor has been notified of contractor's entitlement. Employer may, at employer's sole discretion, pay directly to nominated subcontractor part or all of such amounts previously certified, less applicable deductions as are due to nominated subcontractor, and for which contractor has failed to submit evidence described in above paragraph. Thereafter, engineer shall give a notice to contractor stating amount paid directly to nominated subcontractor by employer, and in next IPC, that's intermittent payment certificate, after this notice shall include this amount as deduction under IPC clause. Staff and labor. This is such a part of contract, staff and labor, that you cannot do anything without them. Means just like material is exclusive, staff and workers are also exclusive. You may shift people from one project to other project, but you cannot change them because rights are for right people. Rights are only for right people, and wrongs are not meant for contract people. Staff, you can say actually everybody is worker, to be very frank. We may call some staff as some labor. It's our own election to use this. Because staff and labor is the same thing, there's no difference. Because when we say physically orientation, this means there should be competent person. Isn't easy, to define what staff, what labor do we need for this. It's not defined, but we can calculate what is required in terms of staff and workers or crew on this project. That can be worked out, that's not a big deal. It can be done and it is done. We have to engage them except as otherwise stated in the specifications. Contractor shall make arrangements for engagement of all contractors' personnel and for their payment, accommodation, feeding, transport and welfare. So all you can say, because everything is attached to them, just like everything is attached to engineer. Now contractor has lot of responsibility in this regard. If you do not push your responsibility towards contract, you can say you will face consequences of that, very bad consequences you'll face for that. Contractor shall pay rates of wages and observe conditions of workers which comply with all applicable laws and not lower than those established for trade or industry where work is carried out. If there is announcement by government or by state that this money is minimum to be paid to a worker, that's what does it mean. In no established rate or conditions are applicable, if that is case, contractor shall pay rates of wages and observe conditions which are not lower than general level of wages, and conditions observed locally by employees employers who tend to vibrate, who tend to industrialize in a similar way. You can say again, I repeat, if no established rate or conditions are applicable, contractor shall pay rates of wages and observe conditions which are not lower than general level of wages and conditions. How to recruit them? That's the point here. Contractors shall not recruit or attempt to recruit staff workers from amongst employer's personnel. First of all, is the conditions. Contractor has no right to recruit any person from employer. Neither employer nor engineer shall recruit or attempt to recruit staff and workers from amongst contractors' personnel. That is basics of this. To keep separate entities and not to allow what's happening in this particular. Contractors shall comply with all relevant laws, workers related laws applicable to contractors' personnel, including laws relating to their employment, including wages and working tours, health, safety, welfare, and immigration, and shall allow them all their legal rights. Shall require contractors' personnel to obey all applicable laws, including those concerning health and safety at works. Health and safety is very important part in engineering and otherwise. Only point is engineers do it faster. Means health safety, environment and ergonomics are very important chapters, very important subjects, very important topics to be taken care of for everyone, whether staying in camp or working on site. Whatever it could be, it is defined well and they are indicated there. Now, working hours is a very important part on contract. See, no one is authorized to exploit our workers. No one. Workers are your reliable friends, your professional friends, you can say. Your friends who make you up, who promote you up, and also who respect you physically. This doesn't mean that they are poor by health. It doesn't mean that. Working hours is a minimum requirement in this world because there's a limit to be free of fatigue, there's a limit to be free of mind. A set working hour is important so that everybody gets rest pause and get refreshment and then sleep again. Life is not for work all the time. 24 hours per day, we have to assign these hours to rest as well and to sleep as well, both. 8 hours working, if you really work sincerely, is not that much. Not. Working hours, no work shall be carried out on site on locally recognized days of rest or outside normal working hours stated in contract data unless otherwise stated in contract, engineer gives consent or work is unavoidable or necessary for production or protection of life or property or for safety of works, in which case contractor shall immediately notice to engineer, shall give notice to engineer, reasons being explained behind terms. You can say work is unavoidable or necessary for protection of life or property or for safety of works, in which case contractor immediately give notice to engineer with reasons and describing works required so that work can be continued even work time is over. Facilities for site staff and workers. Important point it is, very important point. There are many 100 people working say on site and all cannot have facilities for them. In that case, except as otherwise stated in specification, contract shall provide and maintain all necessary utensils on the tolerable, you can say, items. Except as our specification speaks, contractor shall provide and maintain all necessary accommodation and welfare facilities that are required. So we can say now facilities and staff for workers. Except as otherwise stated in the specification, contract shall provide and maintain all necessary accommodation and welfare facilities for contractor's personnel. So what we say about facilities for staff and labor, it's very important point we have to understand. Whatever is given here, that's only namesake, but we have to really understand. So let's say first of all what's given here. That's important point. What says except otherwise stated in specification, contractor shall provide and maintain all necessary accommodation and welfare facilities for contractor's personnel. That's very common. Contract could be saved within 72 days of agreement. Now, if such accommodation and facilities are to be located on site, except where employer has given contractor prior permission, if they should be located within areas identified in contract, whatever such accommodation or facilities that are found elsewhere within site, contractor shall immediately remove them at contractor's risk and cost, and contractor shall also provide facilities for extension. So, you know what we are saying? Means if such accommodation or facilities are found elsewhere within the site, contractor shall immediately remove them at its own expense. Contractor shall start also provide facilities for employer's personnel as stated in provisions. Now we come to health and safety issue, which is a talked of very important issue, without which nothing is going to happen. It's number one issue in our priority, health, safety and environment. In addition to requirements of health and safety obligations, contractors shall at all times take all necessary precautions to maintain health and safety of contractors' personnel. Its, its collaboration with local halls. Sorry. Health and safety of personnel is very important participation at this point because of so many reasons. You have to think about how to handle this. If workers are not healthy, they are not safe, the work shall not be done in condition, atmosphere, environment. And environment means health and safety combination lead to losses of environment. Addition to requirements of health and safety obligations, contractors shall at all times take necessary precautions to maintain health and safety of construction or consultants personnel. Is it assume So health and safety is, again I say, very very important aspect on every contract. You can say health and safety obligations are there, but contractors shall all times take care to call necessary precautions to maintain health and safety of workers, including economic health and safety of workers. Mm. Let us go on safety further because it's a very important part on life of workers. We have no right to exploit their health and their physical potential for our benefit. It is our obligation to grant them this facility, and they must remain healthy all times for purpose of work. That is basic requirement. Nobody can be exploited of health and safety. Safety and health are requirement in specific postal justice. It involves. So I would suggest you should take much care on health and safety of everyone, which is basic fundamental in contracts. If you want to keep your contract upwards, your achievements upwards, definitions mentioned in contract. You can say there are many conditions already regarding HNSC. Then contractor shall at all time all take all necessary precautions to maintain health and safety of sick bay, ambulance services, and any other medical services stand stated in specifications are available at all time at site, and that whatever accommodation for contractors and employers personnel and suitable arrangements are made for all necessary welfare and hygiene requirements on for prevention of epidemics. Contract shall appoint the health and safety officer at site responsible for maintaining health, safety, and protection against accidents. This officer shall be qualified, experienced, and complete and competent for this responsibility, and have authority to issue directives for purpose of maintaining health and safety of all personnel authorized to enter or and, then we can say throughout you can say execution of works, contractor shall provide whatever is required by this person to exercise this responsibility and authority. Contractor superintendence, very important part it is. It is a kind of plus supervision means plus superintendence. It's above everyone. From commencement date until issue of performance certificate, contractor shall provide all necessary superintendence to plan, arrange, direct, manage, inspect, test, and monitor execution of works. Plan number 1, arrange number 2, direct number 3, manage number 4, inspect number 5, test number 6, monitor execution of work number 7. By chance these sequences are, but anything can be read. From commencement, of job until completion, all these are important steps, important stages. As we said, plan, arrange, direct, manage, inspect, test, and monitor. Superintendence shall be given by sufficient number of persons. Sufficient number of persons means depending on job requirement. Who are fluent in or have adequate knowledge of language for communications, that is requirement of law and language. Who have adequate knowledge of corporations, of organization, right? You know, who have adequate knowledge of operations to be carried out, including methods and techniques required, hazards likely to be encountered, and this will exit into various. Contractors personnel. Contractors personnel, including key personnel, shall be appropriately qualified, skilled, experienced, and competent in their respective trades or occupations. Engineer may require contractor to remove or cause to be removed whoever person employed on site of works, including contractors representative and key personnel if duly required. Engineer may require contractor to remove or cause to remove removed person employed on site of works, including contractors, representative, and key personnel, if any, for work. So we can say persist in any misconduct, who persists in any misconduct or lack of care. This is a very important point. Misconduct or lack of care. Carries out duties completely, I can say, incompetently, carries out duty incompetently, and persists in any misconduct or lack of care, carries out duties incompetently or negligently, fails to comply with whatever provision within contract, persists in any conduct which is prejudicial to safety, health, and of course. Now, you can say is found based on reasonable evidence to have engaged in corrupt, fraudulent, collusive, or coercive practice, or has been recruited from employer's personnel in breach of subcontract recruitment of persons. And if appropriate, contractor shall then promptly appoint or cause to be appointed a suitable replacement in case of a placement of contractor representative. The contractor's representative shall apply to you know can say whoever is incompetent on site should not be tolerated even if you find a person is competent. It's in your own interest to remove that to a lesser responsible area or to exclusively remove from project forever. One is what? Very boring, of course, but very important. It's boring but very important, that's true. Fails to comply with any provision of contract, persist in any conduct which is prejudicial to safety, health, or protection of environment, is found based on reasonable evidence to have enough from employers, employers personal or person or personal or while victim no has been resulted from employers personal in breach of subcontract recruitment of persons. If appropriate, contractor shall then promptly appoint or cost to appointed a suitable replacement in case of replacement of contractor's representative. Contractor's representative shall apply in case of replacement of key personnel. Yeah. Assessment is ongoing. Assessment for expenses is ongoing. Have patience. Persist in any conduct which is prejudicial to safety, health, or protection of environment is found based on reasonable evidence to have engaged in corrupt, fraudulent, collusion, coercion practice, has been recruited from employer's personnel, is not permitted in breach of recruitment of persons. Inappropriate, if appropriate, and say contractor shall have then promptly appoint or cause to be appointed a suitable replacement or person that they have maybe to wage. Okay. Now, long way to go. Yes, 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 long way to go. Slowly, but with understanding of basis, understanding of everything. Then, you know, contractors records, unless otherwise proposed by contractor and agreed by engineer in each progress report under subclause for two progress reports. Contract shall include records of whatever is given below, and occupation and actual working hours of each class of contractors personnel, occupation and actual working hours of each class of contractors personnel, type and irregularity of personnel records, environment of we can say type and actual working hours for each of contractor's equipment, type of temporary works used, type of plant installed in permanent works, and quantities and types of materials used for each work activity shown in program at each work location. Then you can say, so there are requirements of what sort of records we have to maintain in contracting, and once again I tell you, occupation and actual working hours of each class of contractors personnel, type and actual working hours of each of contractors personnel, equipment, not temporary worksheet, work used, type of plant installed in permanent works, and for acid less than, you can say types of works used, temporary works used, types of plant installed in permanent works, and quantities and types of material used for each works activity shown in program or in disorderly conduct. Orderly conduct and disorderly conduct. Contractors shall at all times take all necessary precautions to prevent any unlawful, righteous, righteous or disorderly conduct by or amongst contractors' personnel, and to preserve peace and protection of persons and property on a near site. The If no key personnel are stated in specifications, subclause shall not apply. Otherwise, yes. Then you can say contract shall appoint natural persons named in tender to positions of key level, which we call key personnel. If an appointed person fails to act in relevant position, important person other than this self. So you can say court shall appoint, contract shall appoint natural persons named in tender. If not so named, appointed person fails to act. If appointed person fails to act in relevant position of key personnel, if contractor shall submit to engineer for consent name and academics or educational verification of concerned employment. If consent is withheld, you can say, contractor shall submit to engineer for consent name and particulars of another person. The contractor proposes to appoint to such position. Consent is withheld or and then you can say if consent is withheld and or subsequently revoked, contract shall similarly submit name and particulars of a suitable replacement for such position. If engineer doesn't respond within 14 days after receiving such submission by giving a notice stating its objection to appointment of such person or replacement with reasons, engineer shall be deemed to have given its consent. The contractor shall not hold on just a minute please, let me wear my shoe. Contractor shall not act, shall not do without, shall not without prior difficult to sit without this, my God. Contractor shall not without engineer's prior consent revoke appointment of any of key personnel or appoint a replacement unless contract shall not withhold without engineer's prior consent revoke the appointment of any of key personnel or appoint a replacement unless person is unable to act as a result of death, illness, disability, or resignation. In which case, appointment shall be deemed to have been revoked with immediate effect, and appointment of replacement shall be treated as a temporary appointment until engineer gives its consent to replacement or another replacement is conducted or appointed under this subclause. All key personnel shall be based at site or where works are being executed off site at location of works for whole time that works are being executed. If any of key personnel is to be temporarily absent during execution of works, a suitable replacement shall be temporarily appointed subject to engineer's prior consent. All key personnel shall be fluent in language for communications defined in law and language. What a pity. Contracting is really very critical profession. Very critical profession. Where risks are involved, money is involved, efforts are involved, material is involved, reputation is involved, and what is left that is not involved is a question. What is left not involved? Everything is at stake. Everything is at stake. It's really, you cannot say it is funny. It's all full of risk. Full of risk it is. You have to spend time, you have to spend money, you have to spend knowledge, and you have to play with tricks, means for doing work. You have to do what you can do legally, professionally, industrially, to get job done. It's kind of, you can say, total profession. It's not part profession. It's total profession that plays its role. Let us say people call it contractorship, but it is something different, more than that. It's business. It's not even profession. Totality, complete totality. Risk is involved. All risks are involved. and responsibility of all the risks is digested by contractor and nobody else. Employer leaves it to contractor, and employer becomes like equivalent to risk free. Engineer is risk free in this case actually, because material part of everything goes to contractor for with well, we can say accepting every kind of negative result. Of course, positive is there, but negative is also there. Is therefore very different kind of profession, different kind of world or business, you may call it by whatever name it works in fact. So I should say it's not what we think it is. It is something very different. And meanwhile, wait for a few minutes. Very difficult. Oh, just going to walk. Very difficult. Oh my God. What I should do, I don't know. Plant, material and workmanship, very big part of contracting. Plant, material and workmanship, which actually dominates world of contracting because plant is very expensive. Materials constitute about 30% to 40%, 70% to 80% of cost, and workmanship is comprises about 15 to 20%. So this is actually plant is expensive in a way of its use. So plant, materials and workmanship, which are, you can say, beautiful part of contract, and without which no work can be accomplished. We call it, they say, manner of execution. Let us say contractor shall carry out manufacture, supply, installation, testing and commissioning and or repair of plant, production, manufacture, supply and testing of materials and all other operations and activities during execution of works. This is the classification here within this paragraph. Manufacture, supply, installation, testing and commissioning and or repair of plant. So plant part says it involves manufacture and supply as well, of course. Manufacture, supply, installation. So first comes manufacture, then comes supply, then comes installation, then comes testing and commissioning or repair as well. While in other case materials, that is manufacture, is excluded. It is production, you can say manufacture, supply and testing of materials. Well, I think there's some confusion in this. It should be production, supply and testing of material and all other operations and activities during execution of works. And it should be in manner specified in contract, and of course in a proper workmanlike and careful manner and accordance with recognized good practice, with properly equipped facilities and non-hazardous materials except as otherwise specified in contract. So let us understand this. What is job of contractor in this case? In plants and materials and workmanship, and it is manufacture plant, supply plant, install plant, test and commission plant or repair plant. You can say that way. Or you can say produce material, supply material, execution of works and which involve workmanship. So what it is, in what manner like and careful manner in accordance with recognized good practice, and of course with properly equipped facilities in contract. I think materials in or for works. What is this? Contractor do it. Contractor shall submit samples of materials, which samples? Following samples. Let's see what were. Contract shall submit following samples of materials and relevant information to engineer for consent prior to using materials in or for works. Manufacturers standard samples of materials and samples specified in contract, all at contractor's cost. And first is manufacturers standard samples. Manufacturers standard samples of materials and samples specified in contract, all at contractor's cost. And then additional samples instructed by engineer as variation. Each sample to be labeled as to origin and intended use of works, means from where this material has come, this sample has come, and where its use on works. We have to see inspection in this case. Employers personnel shall, during all normal working hours stated in contract data, employers personnel shall, during all normal working hours stated in contract data and at all other reasonable times, have full access to all parts of site. Have full access to all parts of site and to all places from which natural materials are being obtained. Has a difference. Full access to parts of site as well as to places from which natural materials are being obtained. It's an important point here. You may bring natural material, means from natural places you can say, or from fields, and that is very important point, means employer has access to these two locations, complete site locations and natural materials exploration locations. During production, manufacture and construction at site and elsewhere, be entitled to what? What can they do there? They can do there examine, inspect, measure, test. Examine, inspect, measure and test to extent stated in specification all these materials, plant and workmanship. Check progress of manufacture of plant and production and manufacture of materials. Make records including photographs and or video recordings and carry out other duties and inspections as specified in these conditions and specification. Contractor shall give employer's personnel full opportunity to carry out these activities, including providing safe access, facilities, permissions and safety equipment. What it says? Contractor has to give full opportunity to employer to carry out these activities, including providing safe access, facilities, permissions and safety equipment. Contractor shall give employer's personnel full opportunity as I said before. Contractor shall give a notice to engineer. Contractor shall give a notice to engineer whenever materials, plant or work is ready. Whenever materials, plant or work is ready for inspection. And before it is to be covered up, for good, once you cover it up, it's not even possible to take it out so comfortably or so easily or conveniently. So what we say, it is duty of duty of contractor to notify engineer whenever materials, plant and work is ready for inspection, and this inspection be conducted before cover up of that item. Put out of sight, before it is put out of sight, or it's packed for storage or transport. All before that activity, inspection be conducted, and contractor has to notify to engineer for inspection before all these activities. As such, we said that work is ready for inspection and it is to be covered up, or packing has been done for storage or transport. Employer's personnel shall then either carry out examination, inspection, measurement or testing without unreasonable delay, or engineer shall promptly give a notice to contractor that employer's personnel do not require to do so. If engineer gives no such notice and or employer's personnel do not attend at time stated in contractor's notice, or such time as may be agreed with contractor, contractor may proceed with covering up, putting out of sight or packaging for storage or transport. If contractor fails to give a notice in accordance with this subclause, contractor shall, if and when required by engineer, uncover work and thereafter reinstate and make good, all at contractor's risk and cost. Testing by contractors. Testing by contractor. It's also very important because first testing is done by contractor for satisfaction. So subclause shall apply to all tests specified in contract other than tests after completion. Contractor shall provide all apparatus, assistance, documents and other information, temporary supplies of electricity and water, equipment, fuel, consumables, instruments, labor, materials and suitably qualified, experienced and competent staff as are necessary to carry out specified tests efficiently and properly. All apparatus, equipment and instruments shall be calibrated in accordance with standards stated in specifications or defined by applicable laws, and if requested by engineer, contractor shall submit calibration certificates before carrying out testing. Let us repeat this para. because this is testing para and very important one. Contractor shall provide all apparatus, assistance, documents, and other information, temporary supplies of electricity and water, equipment and fuel, consumables, instruments, labor or workers, materials, suitably qualified, experienced and competent staff as are necessary to carry out specified tests efficiently and properly. All apparatus, equipment and instruments shall be calibrated in accordance with standards stated in specification or defined by applicable laws, and if requested by engineer, contractor shall submit calibration certificates before carrying out testing. Contractor shall give notice to engineer stating time and place for specified testing of whatever plant, materials and other parts of works. This notice shall be given in reasonable time, having regard to location of testing or location of testing for employer's personnel to attend. Contractor shall give notice to engineer. Again, I am repeating. Contractor shall give notice to engineer stating time and place for specified testing of whatever plant, materials and other parts of works. This notice shall be given in reasonable time, having regard to location of testing for employer's personnel to attend. Engineer may under clause 13 or variations and adjustments. Engineer may under clause 13 variations and adjustments vary location of timing or details of specified tests or instruct contractor to carry out additional tests. If these varied or additional tests show that tested plant materials or workmanship is not in accordance with contract, cost and whatever delay incurred in carrying out this variation shall be borne by contractor. After that, so what we say, engineer shall give a notice to contractor of not less than 72 hours of its intention to attend tests. If engineer does not attend at that time and place stated in contractor's notice under this subclause, contractor may proceed with tests unless otherwise instructed by engineer. These tests shall then be deemed to have been made in engineer's presence. If contractor suffers delay and or incurs cost from complying with any such instruction or whatever such instruction, or as a result of delay for which employer is responsible, contractor shall be entitled subject to subclause claims for payment and oblique or EOT, extension of time to EOT and or payment of cost plus profit. If contractor causes and delays to specified tests, including varied or additional tests, and such delay causes employer to incur cost, employer shall be entitled subject to subclause claims for payment and oblique or EOT to payment of this cost by contractor. Contractor shall promptly forward to engineer duly certified reports of tests. When specified tests have been passed, engineer shall endorse contractor's test certificate or issue a test certificate to contractor to that effect. If engineer has not attended tests, he or she or it shall be deemed to have accepted readings as accurate readings of test. Defects and rejection shall apply in event that whatever plant, materials and other parts of works fails to pass a specified test. Defects and rejection. If as a result of an examination, inspection, measurement or testing, whatever plant, materials, contractor's design or workmanship is found to be defective or otherwise not in accordance with provisions within contract, engineer shall give a notice to contractor describing item of plant, materials, design or workmanship that has been found to be defective. I repeat, if as a result of an examination, inspection, measurement or testing, plant, material, contractor's design or workmanship is found to be defective or otherwise not in accordance with provisions in contract, engineer shall give a notice to contractor describing item of plant, materials, design or workmanship that has been found to be defective. Contractor shall then promptly prepare and submit a proposal for necessary remedial work. Engineer may review this proposal and may give a notice to contractors stating extent to which proposed work, if carried out, would not result in plant, materials, contractors, design or workmanship complying with contract. I repeat, engineer may review this proposal and may give a notice to contractor stating extent to which proposed work, if carried out, would not result in plant, materials, contractor's design or workmanship complying with contract. After receiving such a notice, contractor shall promptly submit a revised proposal to engineer. If engineer gives no such notice within 14 days after receiving contractor's proposal or revised proposal, engineer shall be deemed to have given notice or no objection. If contractor fails to promptly submit a proposal, if contractor fails to promptly submit a proposal or revised proposal for remedial work or fails to carry out proposed remedial work to which engineer has given or is deemed to have given a notice of no objection, engineer may instruct contractors under this subclause remedial work. Instruct contractor, engineer may instruct contractor under, you say, if contractor fails to promptly submit a proposal or revised proposal for remedial work or fails to carry out proposed remedial work to which engineer has given its content. So you may say engineer has given what it says if contractor fails to promptly submit his proposal for remedial work or fails to carry out proposed remedial work to which engineer has given or is deemed to have given a notice of no objection, engineer may instruct contractors under subparagraph A and B remedial work, reject plant materials, contractor's design or workmanship by giving a notice to contractor with reasons, in which case subparagraph A to So, alright, now after remedying defects in any plant, material design or workmanship, if engineer requires certain such items to be retested, tests shall be repeated in accordance with testing by contractor clause at contractor's risk and cost. If rejection, if rejection and retesting cause employer to incur additional cost, employer shall be entitled subject claim for payment. EAT is payment EAT. Alright then, if rejection and retesting cause employer to incur additional cost, employer shall be entitled subject to claims for payment and or EOT to payment of this cost by contractor. Remedial work. You know what is meaning of remedial work. There's some defect and you have to rectify that. That's called remedy. Remedial work. In addition to whatever previous examination, inspection and measurement or testing or test certificate are right. Let's move further. In remedial works, it's a very important part here for handling defects, without which we cannot move further. We can say, in addition to previous examination, inspection, measurement or testing or test certificate or notice of NOC, no objection by engineer, at whatever time before issue of taking over certificate for works or engineer may instruct to price and offer So you can say, if you consider remedial works, it's very important. Really, it's not as easy we think. It's really important point. Means repair or remedy, if essential and necessary, off site or remove from site and replace whatever plant or materials which are not in accordance with contract, repair or remedy, or remove and re-execute whatever other work which is not in line to accordance with provisions with contract, carry out remedial works which is urgently required for safety of works, whether because of an accident, unforeseeable event or otherwise. Contractors shall comply with instruction as soon as practicable and not later than time specified in instruction, or immediately it under and then you can say contract shall bear to comply with instruction as soon as possible, as soon as practicable, and not later than time specified in instruction, or immediately if urgency is specified under subparagraph above. Contractor to bear cost of all remedial work required under subclause. Except to extends that whatever work whatever work since you can say no. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's repeat. Contractor shall bear cost of all mathematical work required under this subclause, except to extend that whatever work under subparagraph is attributable to whatever act by employer or employer's personnel. If contractor suffers delay and or incurs cost in carrying out such work, contract shall be entitled subject to subclause claims for payment and or EOT. EOT and or payment of such cost plus profit. An exceptional event, in which case consequences of an exceptional event shall apply. If contractor fails to comply with engineer's instruction, employer may, at employer's sole discretion, employ and pay other persons to carry out work, except to extent that contractor would have been entitled to payment for work under this clause. Employer shall be entitled subject to clause claims for payment and or EOT to payment by contractor to any other rights employer may have under this contract. So we have gone through many conditions yet. Actually, we have gone through wonderful conditions, to be very frankly speaking. We have gone through very extraordinary conditions of contract which can make you better supervisor, better engineer. This is just many of too many. So don't be disheartened. It will take some time to go through this all. Yet we have to be very patient while dealing with this, because we have to see this also. which is EPC turnkey projects. We will discuss also similarly for such kind of projects, which include designs as well. This is entirely, not entirely, you can say replacements of terms. And of course, when you draw such contract, you have to be with that. So we have seen gradually that contracting business is a kind of risk involving business, risks of every act. Every act is at risk, every activity is at risk, and if care is not done, it can be, you can say, it can be of no use that way. Material, plant, equipment, cost, resources. These are all to be understood in clear terms, very clear terms. We have to go a long way to complete understanding of conditions, which you can say just the start, just the start. Don't go to numbers, pages. We have to take care of this all. Okay, you see ownership. No, we'll see ownership later on. Now, what I'm saying is that what we have gone through so far is very important point here. We have learned this two parties, employer and contractor, who have contracted or who contracted into that document. Well, to be very frank, contracting is a little different here. We have gone through systematic contract contract paper, and we can say cost, quality, quality and time, and also all other knowledge areas involved in this system that would take us to heights of understanding contracting, because contracting is very important factor in civil engineering, construction engineering, as well as all other engineering. Contracting cannot be done otherwise, and if otherwise we cannot do contracting, means we cannot do jobs. That's not possible. It's therefore very important for generally all civil engineers to at least understand how contract is done. Not somebody comes, you visits you, and you run away, not able to talk. That does not happen. That should not happen. My purpose of this field engineering and designs methods, I consider design contract also a design, because design doesn't mean structural design alone. This means design of everything, every document, every involvement, methods, and we say contracts of FIDIC and construction organizations. And of course, communication, coordination club together, and then quantity. All these are very important points. Cover standard values. When you understand this, all this in a sequential way, on in real hierarchy, what comes first and what comes next, that point is very, very important to be cared about. And if we care about that, we do a lot. That's also important. Of course, I am speaking a little slow because this is screen share. You have to see document also, not exactly depend on what I say. You have an opportunity when I share document on screen that you can watch also. I would like my friends go patiently to what we talk here. It is not a joke, but important point that once you have gradually grafted in or shown the contact, Alright, now I think we have to shut down today's talk, right? It's already 7:40. I think we'll continue next time. Okay. By that time, but think you also think how to pull this further, because it is very important to know contracting acts. We know engineering act, we have to know contracting act also, because both move together. Nothing moves separate, both are inseparable. In fact, both move together. That's the important point. Thanks a lot indeed for your kind cooperation.